Hello and welcome to my show, everyone. Thank you for being here today. You are joining me, Ashley Jangro, for How to Market and Sell Life Coaching. And today I am joined by Colleen Lindberg. Colleen is a soul mission activator and spiritual guide. So Colleen has made multiple six figures throughout her years as a coach. And today we're going to learn, how did she do it? So Colleen, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so happy to have you here.
Ashley, I am so excited to be here and I can't wait to jam out with you. I'm so stoked.
Me too. We have had some great talks just as we've talked about doing this. So I'm really excited for you to share some of the gold that you've already shared with me when we've had one-on-one calls. So I think what really makes you unique, Colleen, as a coach is that you have completely thrown out traditional rules that, we're supposed to, quote unquote, follow as we're building our coaching business. And as you explained it to me, you have focused solely on following your intuition. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's like one of those things in your mind that you have to actually move into and disconnect from. And it's a quest. I call it the quest of, but you are right. That's absolutely true.
I love it. And I can't wait to hear more what you mean about that, about how you follow your intuition. So Colleen, can you just start by kind of giving us this 2-minute overview of how you started with coaching?
Yeah. So I fell into coaching. So literally fell into coaching, but I'd been doing it all my life. I was that employee that you would hire in your business. I would come in, I would change everything in the business. I'd teach people what I changed. Then I'd become a manager, supervisor. Everything would be rolling smoothly. And then I would get bored and I'd go do it again. And literally that was my whole entire life. And about 16 years ago, I met a mentor who started a personal development company, and he brought me on to help him literally build that in a system and building that. And still at the time, I was an employment energy mentality. I didn't understand that I had it all within me, that I could actually do this on my own. So I was still chasing the big success through other people, thinking I needed to be riding coattails. And we ended up inside of this personal development company starting coaching, and I became a coach inside of his model. And then a couple of years later, it got to a point where our value systems were no longer aligned, and I made a decision to go out on my own and start a business, even though I had no reference point to really what that meant. I had no idea what I was doing, but all I knew was that this was what needed to happen. And here we are 14 years ago, 14 years later.
Amazing. So, yeah. So you just jumped. You were like, I'm just going to go do this. So how did you start? How did you start getting that first set of clients?
Yeah. So one person came with me. So I already had one client that came with me. And then I just started going, I was like, where am I going to meet people? How am I going to move this through? And luckily for those 2 years, one of my jobs was filling the seats in our events. So I'd been out to networking events. I kind of understood meeting people, although I was always positioning other things. I now started stepping into those spaces to now create. So I started meeting people. I started telling everybody what I was doing, and some referrals started dropping in, and I literally just started moving the ball. Now, yeah, it was an interesting process looking back at the time, because remember, no clue what I was up to. Yeah. All I knew was I was like, I need to build this business supposedly, because that's what kind of dropped in. And at the time I wasn't as intuitive as I am now, but I just kind of was like, okay, let's go and do this. And that's literally how it started.
This is so interesting. That took a lot of guts. That's amazing.
It was a lot of grit and courage for sure. Yeah.
I love that. A lot of grit and courage. So tell me, what were you telling people that you were doing? What were you telling people you were helping with?
Yeah. So I didn't really have a spiel. I was one of those people that would walk into a room and I started getting information from others. And then I'd be like, oh, I could help you with that. And, it even got to the point where someone's like, can you build a website? I was like, yeah, I could totally build a website. So I'd go home and research how to build a website on Google, because 14 years ago, and as you know, with your marketing, background and stuff, 14 years ago, it was a lot easier to build a website on through WordPress than it is today. Cause yeah, you knew of SEO, but you didn't really know of SEO. It was kind of not really a thing. So you could get it up and running and moving forward. So it was that I literally listened. This is what the thing, I didn't niche. I had no idea what I was doing. I listened And I said, can I actually do that? And they're like, you could do that. I was like, yeah, that's totally what I could do. Like, and I literally started finding clients that way. Yeah.
This is amazing. I think this is so incredible because so you're describing, you would go out and meet people, you would listen to what their needs were, and you would ask your brain, can I help with that? And
Yeah.
then you found clients that way. I love that. So then you started kind of building up some momentum with those initial clients and then got referrals from those.
Yeah, well, and also too, what happened in September of that year. So this all started happening in June. In September of that year, like I was trained in an index called Colby at the time through my past mentor. And so I actually went and got certified in Colby. So I started now having an asset tool that I could use in leadership development, that I could use in hiring processes. So I use that as almost like a springboard. So I started getting a little bit more niche. Like I started kind of moving a little bit of things through, and people started referring clients to me for Colby, and that kind of started moving. And I was versed a lot in growth strategies and in business development. Like that's where I actually came from. And looking back, I was like, why am I not leaning into this? Like, look at what you've done for all these companies, like even the personal development company, like, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars later that you filled the seats, you back of the room sailed, you closed the people, you coached them. Like, why are you not leaning into this? So I started actually having these conversations with myself of going, oh my God, like that's the model. Like that's the model. Like, what are you doing? Like running around trying to build websites that you don't even love to do, you know? So it was such a, like the first 5 years were kind of like this, oh my God, throw mud against the wall. Let's see what sticks. Can I really hold this? Am I worthy enough to do that? Is it actually working? You know, like all of those things started running through my brain for like at least the first 5 years of business. It's so interesting.
This is so fascinating because I think that this has come up in all of the previous episodes too, where especially in the first episode with Tavana, where she was describing how she became a coach, and I had the same experience. And it's almost like we forget all of this other experience we have and forget that we can drag that in with us and use all of our previous life experience to build out our business. It's like we go into this fog and we're like, now I'm a coach, I'm a completely different person. So it's almost like when you learn to incorporate what you've already been doing for a period of time, then you realize like, oh, now I know how to be successful. So tell me back from that first year. I know it's a long time ago, so it might be hard to remember, but how much do you think you made that first year?
Yeah. So when you position this question before we hit record, I was like, oh my God, I don't even remember, but intuition says to me probably around like 9,000. So outside of like the small, like employment jobs or just the gap that I was trying to fill, I think it was about 9,000. And every year from then on, I kept doubling the money. And I remember this process looking back over time until I started hitting six figures in 2015 was when I actually hit my first like 100K year.
Okay.
So that was like 8 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been an interest, and that's, as you think about 5 years of like throwing mud against the wall. And then all of a sudden I started leaning in and boom, 100K year showed up. So it was like, okay, there's something there for sure.
And do you feel like that was, if you could define what was that primary difference, do you feel like it was that you were leaning into where your skills were?
Yeah. And I started running entrepreneurship programs, and I started really honing in on like the development in entrepreneurship and growth strategies, and really leaning into that mechanism and teaching about scaling business and that's at the time, that's where my asset was in understanding, although I'm sure my spiritual self would have something else to say about it. But at the time, that's what I knew, and that's what I charged forward with. And those were the results that started to play out in my field. But I was still hustling. It was still like gritting in. It was still like, you know, all these meetings all the time and lots of energy. But I got to, you know, a 6-figure year that year, but it was more like pulling teeth than it was the way I create now. So,
This is so interesting. I mean, first of all, I love that you shared that your first year you made around 9,000, because I think that's so helpful for coaches that are just starting out to realize, like, if this is, you know, if I didn't even reach my first 10K in my first year, that's okay. That doesn't mean you're never going to be successful. I also love that you're kind of pulling apart, okay, I did reach 6 figures, but it was a hustle. So I'm interested to get to the part where before you share what made it change. In fact, let's just go there now. At what point do you feel like it changed from that hustle to something that you could replicate, to something that, you felt like was predictable and you felt confident that the money was going to continue coming in?
Well, even still for like the first 4 years outside of that, it was still like, it was almost like I kept having to move the ball forward, and
Mhm.
nothing felt like, yeah, I had one-to-one clients and there was always a base coming in, but it never felt that I was always going to be secure. Like it never
Mm.
felt that way before. Like it just was always like a pursuit almost in the mechanism. And I understand why, because when all this stuff happened in 2020, all my clients had to shut down their business. So therefore, the income that Colleen created that was always a surety wasn't coming in because I wasn't coaching. Like, how do you
Mhm.
send out an invoice for calls that we're not doing because they're not even open to be able to move dynamics through, right? So I had a hard hit in that year, and it was a hard hit of, now are you finally ready to listen and understand what you're actually meant to do in your life? And I was like, and this is the
Wow.
spiritual side moving through. We're going,
Mhm.
look, we've let you play over here and you've been dabbling and you've taken, like, I started taking spiritual courses like back, like at the same time as I started the business. I got my first spiritual mentor one-to-one. So I was doing all the courses for fun. Like I was past life regression, Akashic records work, like mediumship, like all of the cool things in spirituality
Mhm.
I had under my belt, because I was just like, that would be fun to know that.
Yeah.
And so it was in 2020 that like literally the calling came in, like, you need to start using these assets. It's time for you to start to activate the actual purpose that you're meant to do in life, which is still part of business, but it's a fine tuning vibrational energy of like soul mission activation. It's not just like, let's go build out your business and get you to set goals and like let's go create a marketing strategy that's more cookie cutter, like we've talked about, like, oh well, these are the tactics that should work.
Mhm.
It's like fine-tuned, aligned, like right here in your potency, and it may not make sense to anybody but you, which is exactly perfect. So when I actually started doing that is when the ease started to drop in, where the consistency, the programs, the master class, like all the stuff that I do now is just like this fine tuning mechanism that I work less hours, make more money. A 6-figure plus a year is like, yeah, okay, I could do that in my sleep now. And not like I'm an egotistical sitting over here hoity toity. It's because I'm living in a vibration of that alignment. And that is the purpose of who I am. So it's like, yeah, it's just a
This
totally
is
different life.
incredible. I think this is so fascinating. What do you feel like stopped you from incorporating those pieces into your business
Mm.
earlier?
Yeah, the fear that, so a couple things, the fear that, can I really make money at this, which I actually think is a thing. And I
Mhm.
think that some entrepreneurs out there, and you may even see this in like your life coaching, some people don't believe that you could make multiple 6 figures a year as a spiritual guide. Like they're like, oh well, if you're spiritual you shouldn't be making money, and that's like BS, totally BS. But I think it's that fear of like, can I actually do this? Will people pay for this? Is this actually me? Like, can I actually hold this? Like, is this a thing I can actually do? And I think those were the first 3 things in my world that kept moving through. And I just thought it was like a side thing, like, whatever,
Mhm.
that's like a fun thing I do with my friends. And it wasn't until 2020 that I literally started owning my spirituality in social media and actually like exposing that. Like if you were in my tight niche of people, you knew that I was spiritual. We talked about it, we had coffee and we would go there, but I never ever, like maybe a random like manifestation post and things like that, but I
Mhm.
never spoke about the channeling and the dimensional work, all the other things that I do now. Now it's like you can't turn it off.
This is so good. I love this because this is something that comes up between my coach who I interviewed last show. It was fascinating. But he always says to me, what if you let it be easy? So it's like
Mhm.
those things that I just love doing. I have this thought in the back of my mind, like, well, no one's going to pay for that. It's too easy. Like, why would anyone pay me for that? But you're saying you leaned into, this is giving me goosebumps. You really leaned into those pieces that were just easy and natural for you.
Yeah.
And then there was a shift in your business. So tell me
Yes.
about that shift. What started happening as in 2020, as you started talking more about the spiritual side of yourself
Mhm.
in your
Yeah.
social media? What happened?
Yeah, so I was still like pulling teeth a little bit. So by the end of the year, I was finally ready. I was like, okay, fine. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be all in. Like, this is me talking to like higher self, divine connection, whomever you feel like you talk to, God, whatever.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm like, so literally, I always channel through my right side. So that's why I always talk over here. And I'm like, fine. Okay, fine. I'm going to own this. And this was like October. I'm like, I will launch it in January, officially into the world of 2021, like January. And November started rolling around. I started getting these calls from people. Hey, I was referred to you that you could do some like work and telling me what my like soul purpose is and helping me really create a business around that. And I was like, did the universe text you? Like, how do you know this? Like, because I didn't tell anybody, right? I wasn't telling anybody. I just, these referrals started coming in and I'm looking around going, what is happening? But like, this is what we call alignment. Like, these are the cool things that happen when you actually start to step in, that people start to show up and they start to like drop into your like inbox and they start to send you messages or they pick up the phone. Like, I had one lady hear a podcast of mine back years ago and she was like, I tried all the links. I can't reach you there. And I Googled you and I found your phone number. And she called me and she's like, I don't know why, but I need to work with you. Like, this happens. Like, this is the happening. Right. And it's like these things that you're like, you're never going to believe this. Oh no, I believe all of it. So I was forced, quote unquote, to start to take action earlier than I thought, because the universe was like, you are in and ready. And so I was like, so I launched this 2-hour package, which is still one of like an a la carte thing. I still have it because it's so potent that if you're working with other coaches and you're in this wheelhouse doing your thing, but you want to get this targeted, we could drop in for 2 hours, get the game plan in place, and then you go take it to wherever you are and run, right? So that was the first thing that I launched. And then it started like coming through was like, you should maybe teach like a workshop on this or teach like a master class. And so small little pockets of other offers started dropping in. And by the time I was fuddling around by the end of 2021, literally, you know, I was still like, okay, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, like I was still kind of in a battle a little bit. Literally what happened in the beginning of 2022, I said, okay, fine, I'm all in. I'm all in. I will own all the pieces of me. I will step fully in. I will embody it. I will trust to the ninth degree and I will not question anymore and I'll just do. So then what started happening is monthly programs dropped in, monthly master classes, people started registering, people started moving through my world. The circles that I taught are now consistently every month. And literally when I owned my rebellion, meaning because I have a rebel energy and it's part of my brand and it's part of the work I do in the spiritual world, like we're deconstructing, dismantling conformity. Like that's literally a vibration that I hold in what I do. When I finally owned who I really was in that rebel, and I put out a branding piece, I think it was in June of 2022. And the masterclass I taught was called Unleashed. And it was me in a thong underwear, and all you saw was my back and only a thong underwear. And I sold the most like places in that masterclass because of that branding. At every price point I launched it at. So from the beginning to the full price, people purchased every single way. And I went, there's something in this, you know, like
because you started embracing who you truly were.
Yes. And then it all started piling up and piling up and piling up. And now it's like, I'm in it. Like people are like, what's the goal for the rest of the year? And I'm like, 100K months is what I'm calling in. And I'm collapsing time and, you know, I'm moving it through, and people are like, how are you doing it? I'm like, there's a strategy, but there's also the alignment. Like, it's like, there's a potency that's moving through my field now that the possibilities that I thought may happen before are now actually real things, because I fine-tuned the energy, the potency, the amplification, and now it's just like coming through.
This is so incredible. So as you know, we're going to launch this live. We will be in the chat live. And so I just want to engage the chat for a moment and ask people if they've had an experience like this, where it's like, when I finally aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing, that's when I started seeing the money come in. So I just want to ask our chat to answer that, to respond to that question real quick. And then you and I are in the chat at the moment. In the future, we're like communing with our future selves, answering their questions and answering and interacting with them. So even though, you know, that strategy and the breakdown, I want to emphasize everything you're about to tell me was completely in alignment, and you were using the potency of that alignment. So,
Mhm.
not that these details are as important, but I think it's really helpful for especially coaches just starting out to hear, that your pricing and your timing and all of that, just so they can
Yeah.
begin to brainstorm for themselves. So, let's back up to that 2 hour package. Do you remember what
Yeah.
you were charging for that 2 hour package?
Yeah, so I charged 333 Canadian at the time for that package. It now goes for 1111, $1,111
Mhm.
US. As I moved it through, I watched what was needed. So some people
Mhm.
needed follow up, so I've added in like a week of Voxer to help support that mechanism inside of that. But that was so a couple things to note is that everything I do is intuitive, right? So like
Mhm.
we've talked about this, but I go, what are we charging? And the price drops in and I charge that price. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to charge it. Like the value is way more bigger than this. I'm like, I just trust. Or sometimes it's like,
Mhm.
why are you charging 111 for this masterclass? Because I was told to. Like
Mhm.
that's how I live. Now your model may not be structured that way. So but trusting yourself to hold this value. If you are hearing this price of like 777, but in your heart, you're like, I don't know if I can, I don't like, there's some that work that needs to be done, which I'm sure in the life coaching side, that's something you've seen over
Yes.
time of people feeling
Yes.
worthy for relationships, for everything, but also in business. Like you've got to hold that worth and know I am worthy of charging these prices.
Mhm.
So
I
yeah.
love this. And this is, exactly what you're saying. I approach things from less of a woo side, though I am getting much more woo than I used to be.
Yeah.
And I am much more of from the cognitive side. So
Mm-hmm.
I start thinking about it, if you have this price that you think, okay, well, there's more value in it, so I should charge a higher price. If your nervous system is not aligned with that, if you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling uncomfortable with it, you're going to struggle to sell it. Whereas if
Yeah.
it feels aligned with your nervous system, if you
Yeah.
feel calm about it, then you're going to have an easier time. So it's similar to having the intuition, just a different explanation behind it, I suppose. So I'm taking notes as you go, so I can kind of say, like,
Yeah.
as we reverse engineer, here's how you started. Um, and I think this is so great. So you say that you went from those 2 hour packages then into workshops,
Mm-hmm.
and I imagine like bigger coaching packages. Is that right?
Yeah, so I at the so through okay, so this is also a reference point too, like through a lot of my business coaching stuff, like I was in this space of and this energy of, oh my God, I need to make sure I have more clients and paying lower value because I didn't see the value in my work yet. I had to work through that. That was one of the main things in business I had to work through of the value I held. Like I helped you make a 7-figure year, but I'm charging you $500 a month for coaching where we talk every single week and I'm available for you. Like it didn't make sense, like even in
Yeah.
the scope of it, but I didn't see the value of me yet moving
Mhm.
through. So I would charge, and it's so funny, like $350 a month I charged, and I would go to your place. So like, and like imagine like that's I maybe they paid me $50 an hour, maybe like I should have been working like a job potentially, but like I was in it for the reason, and I get and understand that whole process of the whole entire thing and mechanism that I moved through. So I moved the one-to-one coaching up to 1111 a month
Mhm.
back then. When I launched the 2 hour package, I was like, okay, we've got to increase the coaching 1111 a month, and people can still get in on a package at 1111 a month working with me, but they get one call a month and then they get
Mhm.
1 day a week in Voxer. So the package changed in the frequency
Mhm.
and potency of the work, where now you really want to play with me, it's like $3,333 a month. And that holds a certain energy. Those are weekly calls
Mhm.
or like 4 calls a month, wherever you choose to use them. And there's a whole different energy on that. So like I started looking at the model going, I want to make sure that I can still serve people if they want one-to-one work with me in a way that makes sense for some people's budgets if they are not escalated in that space yet. But I also got to hold the potency of what I'm creating, right? And what I'm moving through. And the one-to-one side is increasing again, moving into like the Q4 of this year, where it'll be $5,555 for
Mhm.
my high level coaching packages. But people can get into very niched energies with me if they desire that. And yeah, I'm I'm in a reframe of the brand where I'm headed. And it makes sense too, because of the fact that I'm calling in, obviously, this dynamic energy to close the year out. So things need to shift as we continue to grow. And I
Mhm.
want to say one thing, and then we can go into the next question. But like, if I knew what I did today 14 years ago, I
Uh-huh.
would have like completely changed the way I came out of the gate. So even though I made 9,000 that year, that was like a challenging disaster, we're going to call it. Like with the tools, like if you're here right now watching this video,
Mhm.
there are so many tools accessible to you that you don't have to potentially have a $9,000 year coming out
Mhm.
of the gate. Like you could lean in to trainings. You could even go to YouTube and find information right now to actually implement this. Like it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be lack energy driven. It can be like resourceful and beautiful experience moving through, but you're going to have to make a choice. There may be some investment that have to come into play if you desire to move this differently, because
Mhm.
I don't regret anything in life, but looking back, I'm like, dude, we could have totally done this way different.
I
You know,
think this is a really great point. And I just want to ask if you could kind of summarize, what do you feel like you would do differently if you were able to start over with the knowledge that you have today?
yeah, such a great question. So I would fine tune the mechanism. I wouldn't be taking on these random jobs. I
Mhm.
would have gotten super potent and clear about who I was, and then stepped in with that and trusted that the people would have come forth that would pay that type of energy. Whether I charged 350 a month for coaching at the time, it
Mhm.
wouldn't have mattered from the actual price point. It would have mattered from this. So I wouldn't be taking on all these things because now my energy's scattered. I would have been potently in alignment. So for those of you guys starting out or moving it through or really in the beginning phases, get clear. Like just get
Mm.
really clear and own it and speak from this position of truth, like, and allow yourself to be there. Don't kowtow, don't diminish, don't almost think about maybe, like literally dive right in and see what will happen. And I guarantee you shit's going to
That
change.
is
Yeah.
amazing advice. I love that advice for new coaches. So and I'm going to ask this question again, maybe a little bit differently, because I want to hear about what you would do. So this is one of my favorite questions during the whole interview, because I'd want to ask, if you were to have to start completely over, knowing all that you know today,
Yeah.
you have all the information, you have all the contacts, and you have $1,000. Your rent and your food is taken care of, so you don't have to worry about paying the bills. You're not like in that hustle mentality again, but you have $1,000 and you want to become a successful coach. What do you do? How do you start that day?
Yeah, so I would make sure I had $20 a month for Canva because I know I'd be creating graphics. Like I would need the graphic part, and then I'd invest in a software that I could build landing pages and take payments from. So
Mhm.
let's say another 250 is gone, and then I would figure out how do I use this 750 to invest in something, meaning most likely a coach or a program that's going to give me the tools that I need right now to get out of the gate. So like, because if I have a landing page and I have a way to make graphics, I have a way to actually sell something. And now I need a strategy. So now I'm like, okay, I need someone who's done it, who will
Mhm.
take my 750 that I have, and that's all I got. What can I do? Is it a 2-hour call with me? Like if someone came to me and said to me, I only have $750, but I know I want this 2-hour session, I'd be like, let's go. Like I would never hesitate to be like, I'm sorry, it's 11:11. Can you figure out how? No, no,
Yes.
come on in. Like, like let's make it happen. Now, if you say 250, that's a whole other thing. I may be like, okay, I can give you half an hour of time and here's 5 videos I want you to watch. And that's a little bit different because there's a
Mhm.
certain energetic exchange. But if you're like, I have 7, and I would find someone like me, like I know there would be someone that would drop into my awareness that I'd be like, I have 750. What can we do?
This is
And then I
so
would run.
incredible. Yeah.
That's what I do. I'd run. I'd be like, okay, we've got 30 days to figure this
Uh-huh.
out. I've got the month paid right now for, let's say, Kartra, and I've got Canva paid for 1 month. How do I make money to make sure those are paid next and to move this out? And I would get like tightly into
I
the space.
love this advice. I love that you also shared the software that you would use. So Canva is your
Mhm.
priority, and then maybe Kartra. I use Kajabi. I know there's so
Yeah.
many out there. I
Yeah.
think even with is it ConvertKit that you could start for like $9 a month and
Yeah.
have
Like they're all accessible for
yeah,
whatever
like a
you need.
landing page, start your
Yeah.
email list, and you would just start getting clients. I love that you say
Yeah.
that you would invest that back in some guidance. That's really
Yeah.
incredible,
Well,
especially
like
because, oh, go ahead.
no, I floundered for so long trying to like
Mhm.
make it. I would be like, no, 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 no. Okay, let's streamline.
Mhm.
Who knows what I need to know right now to get this moving?
I
Yeah.
think that that is such incredible advice, because I think that there was a huge shift in my business when I started investing in myself and working with my coach and mentor to help me make those decisions, because he's done this for 15 years before me.
Yeah.
And so I get to skip the line in so many ways. And sure, it was a lot of money, but again, I get to skip the line. I don't have to go through the trial and error. I don't have to sling the mud at the wall like you were describing. So I think that's
Yeah.
incredible advice. So here's my question for you. In terms of when you're giving advice for new coaches, do you feel like I know that you had business experience before, but do you feel like any coach could approach the strategies that you use when you're talking about getting in alignment and having that potency and getting really clear and making decisions? Do you feel like any coach could drop into this and repeat what you've done and find success?
Yes, as long as it's true to them. So
Mm,
what I mean by that is I live in the vibration. If it's in you, it's for you. So if you've been thinking about this and dreaming about this and it is yours, meaning it is in you, that you're
mhm.
not trying to build someone else's brand, you're not trying to become someone else, you're not trying to do it like others, this is yours. Yes, 100%. You can definitely come out of the gate and go. But if you are trying to become something, or you saw someone else make 10K a month doing that, and you're like, I'm gonna take that model and run with it, no go, because you're gonna have challenges because it's not authentic to you. But the soul, our purpose is here. And if your purpose is to lead a coaching business in this way, whatever way that is, health, life, business, strategy, whatever it is, spirituality, if that is yours and that's your beat and you move in that rhythm, 100% you can.
This is so good. And those of you that are just listening and not watching, I'm sitting here nodding my head frantically, because I think this is so valuable when you try to take someone else's method and replicate it, but it doesn't feel like a great fit for you. It's
Yeah.
going to be impossible. So I love this so much. So was there any point in your entire journey where I want to ask two different pieces of this? One where you felt like, I can't do this anymore, I want to give up.
Mhm.
And then one where you felt like, okay, I'm here, I've made it, this is it, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. Yes to both.
Mhm.
No,
I
I think
imagine.
almost for the first few years, it was like, what the hell am I doing? Like,
Mhm.
what is this really? I'm going to have to go get a job. I'm going to have to go get a job. I'm going to have to go get a job. Like, how am I supposed to make this work? And then it was almost like this voice kept coming in: stay the course, go to that event, fine tune some things, get that business card. Cause at the time we used those, and like moving that through. So it happened consistently. And even I would probably even say like 4 years ago, even like it peaks up every once in a while. Are you sure?
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah, we're good. We're good. We got this covered. And now it's like I couldn't, like I would suck as an employee, guys, because especially like I would come into the business, I would change it all for the better. I would perfect everything and I'd work myself out of the job, or I'd be like, dude, I'm only coming in for 2 hours a day because I can get more done in 2 hours than most people can in 10. Because that's just who I am. Like, because I intuitively channel in, I figure out the process, I move it through, I get it done. That's how I was, right? So I suck as an employee. So I would never be able to go back that way. Now it's more so like investing in things and watching the investments grow, and getting a team in place to actually scale this bad boy and moving it forward. And how do I keep that moving? So like I'm at the point of no return now. Like I can't, well, I guess we could always decide to close it down, but
Mhm.
like why, when it's so juicy, it feels so aligned, I'm making impact, like in all the ways, like whether it's through content or through my podcast or through actual like programs that people pay for. Every single day I get messages from people, and I'm like, why would I even consider moving out of that when it's that ripple effect that I've been creating momentum in for all these years that's now actually there? And I'm like, wow, like people are finding me from like 10 years ago in my life and going, like literally they're sitting at the eye doctor and someone sits beside them and mentions my name by happenstance, and they lost me in the journey and they're like, oh my god. And then now all of a sudden they're in my programs again and they're buying stuff like from 10 years that I met them because they found me again. Like it's like the most random stuff is happening, and I sit back and with my coffee and just go, all right, universe, amaze me today, let's go. Like I'm ready to see
This is
what you got.
amazing. I love this so
Yeah.
much. And I think that you would describe it as, you're not in the hustle, it's fun and it's easy because of
Yes.
that alignment.
Yeah. And like, guys, I have a to-do list too, like I got stuff
Mhm.
I got to get done, like even today I realized like I have a program next week that I'm teaching and I don't even have a landing page set up for it right now. Like I've got people that have already registered for the program. So it's a go. Like, it's not like I haven't been, but I'm like, oh, I should probably like dive into this, like, and I'm just like, but it's so casual for me now. Like, it's like, there isn't a pressure. Yeah. I've got deadlines and I got stuff to get done. And I fill out forms to be on things like this so I can
Mhm.
still amplify light and stuff. And there's still the tactile side of the business, but it's easier. It feels different. Like everything moves. I get to meet cool people like Ashley, like everything just aligns, and like we get to keep moving in life. And it's just
So
different.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were joking last week. I had my coach Roberto on, well, it's actually by the time this publishes 2 weeks ago, and we were joking about doing it messy. So he like rarely
Mhm.
does landing pages. He's often sending out Google Docs to people instead of, fancy worksheets. And
Yeah.
now I think he has a team doing all of that. But as he ramped up many years ago, he was like, it's so important just to do it messy because
Yeah.
then you have like what you have, people already enrolled in the course when there's not even a landing page available.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like, part of my brand is to get you to trust your intuition. So
Mhm.
like I desire, like you will never find long form sales pages ever in my world because I desire you to make a decision based on your intuition. Like I want you to say yes, and you have 2 lines of detail and don't even know what we're even jumping into. And that is where I get to play. Right. And then everything moves and fluidity and it all aligns. And we come out the other side and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea I even signed up for this. I'm like, me neither. I didn't even know what I was teaching, So it's like,
Yeah.
it's so cool in those experiences, but that's my brand. Like that makes sense for me. Some of you, if you're working with very pragmatic people that need details, because that's your market, then you're going to have to serve them where they're at. But you most likely are that anyway. So you'll be creating that way. So like really
Yes.
following that
I
flow.
love that you said that because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking this is so different from how I work. I think I'm probably a very pragmatic individual and I need all the
Yeah.
details and, I want to know all of that. And a lot of times I think I do something that's uncomfortable for me, but I guess it's my intuition letting me know, do the thing
Yeah.
that's uncomfortable, do it even though it's
Yeah.
scary. But it's so interesting. This is very foreign to me to think about, just jump because of your intuition. But then when I look back, I think, oh, I've done that so many times when it didn't
Mhm.
seem to make sense. And I followed
Yes.
my intuition. And it was the right thing. I love this. So it's like, even what you're saying, even if it is someone who isn't, as connected to their spiritual side as you are, that is still their intuition guiding them. And it's still their style and it's who they are. So this is
Absolutely.
available to anyone, even if they aren't where you are with your spirituality.
Oh my gosh. And remember, like you are authentically you. So you go through your
Mhm.
experiences to teach from them. Like you wouldn't be a coach if you haven't integrated this. And if you are a coach and you haven't integrated, by the way, this is Angel, and you haven't integrated, then there's probably part of your brand that is inauthentic. And I'm just going to call you out on it right now. Like if you are teaching business strategy, but you don't own a business other than your coaching business or never have, and you just took a course once, maybe there's something there to consider, just throwing that out. But if you are authentically in this vibration and you're leading authentically for your people, you will know how to serve them and what they need from you. It's just part of the mechanism of how we show up. So if you need long form details, if you need discovery calls, if you need that space of things, then it's part of your actual brand because your people are going to need it because you're only coaching people where they're at in the energy of who you are. So, yeah.
So good. So it doesn't matter if, yeah. And I mean, this is the whole point of the show is that none of our journeys are going to look the same. We are different
No.
individuals with different skills, different talents, different interests, different passions. And so I love this opportunity to hear from such a variety of coaches to hear how they've done it. And maybe it's extremely structured. And in your case, it was,
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't ever, but
No.
there was a little bit of structure because you were doing the business coaching, but it was very intuitively based even back then, even if you wouldn't have called it that. So it's
Yeah.
just so interesting to hear from the variety of coaches and how different individuals have made it work. I love this. So I'm just going to read, I took notes as you were talking. So if
Yeah.
I were to kind of reverse engineer the way that your business came together. So you initially became a coach inside of another company, and then you left that company with one client. So as you started out, you just made a huge effort to get out there and meet people and let them know that you could help based on whatever had come up in the conversation. So you were really just trying whatever it was. And that kind of allowed you to niche down. And at some point you got certified in the Colby test and used it as a springboard. And that allowed you to niche down even further. So that began to give you some clarity. At that point, you began to embrace your spiritual side. You began to bring it into your business. You got aligned and people suddenly started showing up. So at that moment, you launched a 2-hour package that at the time was $333 Canadian and is now $1111 US dollars. And then you just watched what was needed. So you shifted your programs based on what people needed. So maybe if they needed Vox or follow-up, for example, but it was all based on your intuition in the moment, which I think is so beautiful. And then I have number 8, you went all in trusting your intuition. You were like, here I am, I'm ready to start. So then at that point, you really spent some time understanding your value and getting connected to how much you were worth. So then that allowed you to start charging higher prices. So it became $1111 for a month of one-on-one coaching, but one time a month, $33.33 a month for weekly coaching. Then you created workshops and coaching packages and began to raise your prices again. Does that kind of sound accurate to a reverse engineering of your process?
Yeah. And everything for me now is just in flow. It's like, okay, we'll go. Let's move. Yeah.
It's so interesting to hear, like to look backwards and see, oh, that's how I became a successful coach. Like that was my process. Yeah. So I love that. Well, is there, you already gave some amazing advice to coaches just starting out. Is there anything else you'd like to add for our audience?
I just want to kind of hit home this energy is that our coaches in our world are beautiful beings helping us, just like you're a beautiful being helping other people. But if there's ever a time that your coach is saying to you, this is the only way, or you need to do it like this, but it does not feel aligned for you, like let's just say they're telling you to create a long form sales page, but you do not feel juicy in that, you need to trust yourself in there, because even though they may have, your best interests at heart, they may not be attuned to the fact that you are different in the vibrational alignment than they are, right? And even you as coaches as well, if you're trying to keep people in boxes and say, this is the only way to success, and I know it's through one-to-one work, or like it's through the group coaching, or it's through the membership or whatever, but your person is completely different in their wheelhouse, we've got to take note of that, because our success and our impact is through our unique vibrations. And if you are not owning your unique vibration, or you are not assisting others to own that in whatever way that is, then we're creating conformity and trying to get everybody into boxes. So I'm just going to say, trust yourself and have the conversation with your coach. And then if they don't accept that from you, maybe it's the wrong coach for you. And I'm just going to say that out loud. Like I've had multiple experiences, and I've heard from multiple people in my life. My coach said this was the only way, and they refused to let me do it any other way. And I'm like, guys, I get the vibration of success. I really do. And it leaves patterns, but not everybody's success journey is the same. And you're hearing it through, what Ashley's doing and all these coaches building their businesses in different ways, but start to trust that. So that would be the last thing I want to say.
Amazing advice. I always tell my coaching clients, you've learned from another coach, and typically we teach what we've used to become successful, right? So we teach, this is the exact way, this is the exact strategy because it worked for us. Does not mean it's ever going to work for someone else. And I always think as a coach, my greatest power is to empower my client to take ownership of their own success and do what feels right to them. So I would never want to enforce, anything that I say. I can say, this is what worked for me. Yes. It may or may not work for you. Let's figure out what you want to do. I love that advice so much. And I've been in coaching containers where it was, I was taught a very specific strategy and it didn't work for me. And I think I was really lucky to be in one of those very early on, because it really informed how I wanted to coach later. I thought, I don't ever want to just teach this cookie cutter strategy because it might not work for everyone. So I love that so much. That's such great advice. Well, you have shared so many incredible incredible tidbits here. I'd love to hear from the audience in the chat what you found to be particularly helpful that Colleen has shared. And then I'd just like to hear from you. What is your current offer and how can the audience connect with you?
Well, because I love diversity, I usually have anywhere between 8 to 20 offers happening at once.
That's
So
amazing.
like it depends on where you want to play is the like words I always use. So like Instagram's my like playground. So I'm going to encourage you to come follow me there. But if you're like, hey, I really love to get this tuned in, you know, that 2 hour session may be where your jam starts. And maybe that's all we ever do together, which is more than potent in its own right. But like that would be the thing I would encourage. If you feel me and you're like, oh man, she's really cool or whatever, like come follow me on Instagram and trust yourself in the process of that. And that's kind of where I would lead everybody.
That's fantastic. So I'll put the link to that and any other ways that, any offers that you currently have, I'll put the link to that in the description of the YouTube channel. And I'm excited to follow you on Instagram and connect with you and just to, I think, bring some more of that learning to trust and follow my intuition into my business. So I think that is so amazing. So thank you so much for everything you've shared today, Colleen. I think it's incredibly valuable. So this is all I have for you today, friends. I am just so grateful. Thank you everyone in the audience for joining us today on how to market and sell life coaching. So for any of you that want to contact and connect with Colleen, the links are below in the description. And if any of you would like to have a one-on-one conversation with me to discuss how you can use any of the strategies or modalities that have come up over the past few weeks during the show, then you can reach out to me by going to talkwithashley.com and book a free strategy session and we can talk. So please take a moment to like and subscribe the channel if you're watching this on YouTube today, and then follow and review the show if you're listening on a podcasting app. So that just helps us reach more individuals. So for more help for some community around marketing your life coaching business, you can come join my free online community by going to marketingforlifecoaches.com and requesting to join. So I look forward to meeting you there. And again, Colleen, thank you so much for all of your amazing, everything you've shared today. Thank you.
No, thank you, Ashley, for the platform too. And I so appreciate it.
Yes, I look forward to connecting with you on Instagram. All right, friends, we'll see you next week on how to market and sell life coaching.